Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Sonic X. Okay, so this episode is actually holds a bit of significance because this is the episode where Shadow is reintroduced in the story, and it's a bit interesting, and I will break that down. But the episode also kind of explains that the Meta-X have kind of been active for quite a while and have been destroying planets for quite a while. And this episode kind of visits one of the planets that has long since been abandoned by the Meta-X for the most part. I'll get to that in a minute, but in case the episode opens up with them flying through space and looking for a Chaos Emerald, and they're trying to locate one, and in the process this is revealed to be a dream, but we're actually treated to a flashback of when Shadow first disappeared, and we just see him destroy the bio lizard that was controlling the space colony Ark, and then disappeared, never to be seen again, and Chris has just kept giving his ring as a keepsake. At which point Chris wakes up. It's revealed to all be a dream, and he's actually woken up by an alarm from the ship, and he notes that and he starts panicking and wonders what kind of dream, why he had that strange dream, and then he looks over at the shelf, which has a picture of his parents and with himself and the ring that he was given by Sonic when Shadow disappeared, and deciding that to kind of go and investigate what alarm is going off, he winds up picking up the ring and pocketing it, and then proceeds to go into the main cabin where Tails starts to inform Chris about what's going on and how they found another Chaos Emerald, but they quickly pick up on the fact that Chris is very out of it, and Sonic even asks Chris what's wrong and points out that he seems like he's a mess, and Chris merely remarks that he had a bad dream and nothing more, but it's not entirely clear what's going on with him. But they then point out that they actually wound up finding another planet with another Chaos Emerald, and that they're actually going to be arriving there very soon. Meanwhile, Rouge is currently investigating the chamber where she found the giant capsule, and it is actually revealed to be Shadow, because as she's monkeying around in there, she actually does see Shadow through the glass on the capsule. But more importantly, she notices a Chaos Emerald in the machine and tries to retrieve it, which causes the alarm to go off, and Dr. Eggman and the others immediately go to investigate, and Deco, Boko, and Bakun don't really do anything. They just kind of panic and freak out a little bit, but as she's investigating and wondering why Dr. Eggman has Shadow in a capsule in the base of a ship, Dr. Eggman actually confronts her, shuts off the alarm, and basically just tells her to leave and refuses to answer any of her questions, pointing out that he's just for a plan that he has later down the road, and that it doesn't really matter if she knows about it or not. He just kicks her out, and at which point Deco, Boko, and Bakun show up, and Bakun immediately cowers behind Deco and Boko to just kind of get away from Rouge, because obviously he doesn't like her very much. But when Deco and Boko point out that Rouge is supposed to be there and she's the intruder, Dr. Eggman, to keep her from talking about what she saw, decides to make her an honorary member of their team, and tells them that she's there as a guest. So for that reason, she's just not brought up and is supposed to be there. And Rouge kind of plays along, pointing out that they're all supposed to figure out about teamwork, and then also kind of takes a minute to torment Bakun, pointing out that Bakun knows a lot about teamwork, and proceeds to poke him, and Bakun kind of nods in a very terrified-looking manner. But in case it's at this point where the group actually arrives on this large deserty-looking planet, and it's covered in stone spires and looks very dead. And according to Tails' readings, the planet has apparently been dead for a very long time, and they don't have very much of an idea of what happened to it. But they sense a Chaos Emerald on it, so they decide to actually split up into groups to go and investigate a couple of structures they found. One is a large station that actually wound up crashing onto the planet at some point, and the other is a strange castle which is just standing in the middle of a moat lake. But in case Tails actually decides to start splitting people up, and whoever winds up not splitting up into a group will stay behind to guard the ship, which winds up being himself and Cream and Cheese. But it's at this point where Amy actually winds up volunteering to go with Sonic, and when Tails questions her, pointing out why she always wants to go with Sonic, she merely points out that every great man has a great woman behind him helping him out, and when Tails questions of whether or not that's true, Sonic just shrugs. So yeah, he has no idea what's going on. But in any case, the two of them actually wind up splitting up alongside Knuckles, who comes along much to Amy's chagrin, since she just wanted alone time with Sonic and wanted to go help. But they actually wind up going to investigate the giant castle and note a strange note a strange signal coming from inside, and Tails points out that the chaos energy seems to be higher coming from inside, and asks them to go and investigate, which they do wind up going in and wind up following Amy's scanner into the building and into the main lobby. And with Knuckles at one point asking her if she's picking up anything, but she merely snarkily remarks that she's just looking at her wrist scanner for her health, which and Sonic just tells him to let it go, and they just keep going. Meanwhile, Chris and Cosmo are revealed to actually be in the other group that went to go investigate the space station, and they remark that the space station is very old, likely hasn't seen action in a very long time, and Cosmo points out that it seems like it was abandoned many decades ago, and wonders how long the Meta-X have been here and if there's any chance of actually saving the planet. And they merely remark that they won't know unless they try. And Chris merely remarks that that he's not sure if they will be able to beat the Meta-X, but in any case, they then proceed to actually go into the space station. Meanwhile, back in the castle, Amy just decides to actually just pick a direction and decides to go up a flight of stairs, but it's very clear that this isn't a normal castle and that something is watching them. It's not clear what, but an eye actually winds up appearing on the ceiling at one point, although they don't actually see it, or nor do they know what it means, know what's going on, so they just keep exploring and eventually wind up in a room. They wind up in a bedroom, which they wind up exploring and actually wind up following it through the... They actually wind up following it into the Chaos Emerald readings into a closet, which is revealed to be a dead end, and Amy points out that she's not entirely sure what's going on about how it could actually be a dead end, but it's at this point where there's actually some bright light, and the trio actually wind up running out of the closet and into a room that they weren't in previously. So at which point they start to realize that the castle may in fact be alive and may be messing with them. And also Knuckles asks Amy to check her scanner to make sure that they're actually going the right way, but her scanner inexplicably goes dead, and she starts panicking because she has no idea what to do. At which point they decide to actually keep going forward and see silhouettes of themselves, and Sonic immediately goes to investigate, with Amy following suit, wondering why they can't just send Knuckles to investigate, and Knuckles just kind of shrugs and follows along with. Meanwhile, as they're actually doing that, they're actually Cosmo and Chris are actually investigating the space station a little bit more thoroughly, and Cosmo actually decides to go down to the ground level for a better look, but in the process winds up tripping on something and dropping her flashlight onto one of the consoles down below. Which she remarks was clumsy of her, and then immediately goes to retrieve it. But in the process, winds up setting off a presentation, which I'll get into in a minute because the episode just kind of doesn't reveal that right away when it's on. But in any case, Sonic, Knuckles, and Amy continue to explore the castle, and they actually wind up following their silhouettes, which is just revealed to be a mirror, which Amy points out just feels like a waste of time, and points out that whatever this is actually just messing with them. And to add to that, decides to actually go and investigate the mirror that just got turned around, and spun around, and she winds up looking at it and making faces into it, and then leans up against it and winds up going through it. With Sonic immediately panicking and Knuckles following in close pursuit, and they wind up going through the mirror and back into the main lobby where they just came from. Which they quickly realize means that the Meta-X is likely messing with them, and they quickly realize that something isn't very right. At which point, meanwhile, it's at this point where it's revealed what the message actually was, and it's actually from a race called the Mobicron, which and the person who actually appears in it, she actually winds up leaving a message for whoever finds it, pointing out that the Meta-X came and conquered her planet a long time ago. The Meta-X actually wound up destroying her entire planet in the process, and she points out that they made the base to actually maybe gather a resistance to fight back against the Meta-Rex, but then the Meta-Rex wound up destroying the space station as well, and that's where they wound up being. And the final message that the person on the video actually winds up explaining is, don't try and fight them back against the Meta-Rex because they're very dangerous. At which point the video cuts out, and Cosmo wonders if they were foolish to actually try and challenge the Meta-Rex, but Chris actually points out that that's probably fine, and and points out that they can't really stand by and let the Meta-Rex do whatever they want, and points out that as long as they have hope, they'll be able to actually defeat the Meta-Rex, and with that, they then proceed to leave the space station, with Cosmo pointing out that Chris has had a faraway look the entire time they were investigating, and he merely tells him about the dream he had, and explains how he used to know a guy named Shadow. Explains to him how everybody was in a very bleak state when Shadow disappeared, but Shadow showed up, saved the day, and then disappeared, and they haven't seen him since. So, yeah, for that reason, he points out that Shadow actually wound up inspiring hope in a lot of people, and even though he didn't really do anything heroic until the very end, but he points out that Shadow wound up inspiring a lot of hope in people, and points out that he and Sonic are very similar in that regard, and Cosmo is just shocked at the knowledge that there may be, in fact, be another person like Sonic. But then they get a call from Tails, who finally tells them that Amy's comm link is actually burnt out and they can't actually get to her. So realizing that they're actually remembering that they're actually inside the castle investigating that, they conclude that they were likely attacked by whatever was in there, and proceed to actually go and investigate. And they immediately get back to the Blue Cyclone to actually get into another ship and try to help the party get out. And it's at this point where Sonic actually tries attacking the castle itself to try and burst it apart, but he just winds up going through the wall and landing on Chris's ship, and Sonic merely thanks Chris for the assist and proceeds to jump back into the castle to actually rescue Knuckles and Amy, and Amy clings to Sonic for dear life so that they can all escape, and they all wind up going out of the castle as the castle actually winds up crumbling around them in a large dust. But in the process, the castle actually winds up tracking Sonic and tries to drown him and pulls him into the ocean. And it's then revealed that what the Meta-Rex actually is, and that the Meta-Rex, revealed to be the Meta-Rex Desert, is a giant nanite-consisted Meta-Rex which is able to shapeshift, could take any form it wants, and case in point, it was shifting around as the castle earlier, and then proceeds to make a pun about how Sonic is actually sunk to a new low because he's currently being drowned. At which point it then remarks that they actually stand no chance of actually defeating the Meta-Rex, and that they are invincible, they will never defeat the Meta-Rex, and that there's no chance in hell of them actually succeeding, and that they will eventually destroy them, starting with Sonic. At which point Chris decides that's enough of the Meta-Rex's blabbering and actually fires a ring into the puddle where the Meta-Rex is sitting, and Sonic actually winds up being revived from it and winds up bursting out of the Meta-Rex to actually get back on dry land and tries to fight back against the Meta-Rex, but the Meta-Rex merely starts manifesting itself as a bunch of steel structures to keep them from actually hurting it, so they have a very low chance of actually defeating it, and even a combined attack from Sonic and Knuckles actually doesn't work. The two actually do their combined spin maneuver again, but all they do is wind up going through it, and the Meta-Rex just reforms. And meanwhile, Dr. Eggman and his robots have actually been watching the fight from their spaceship. And Deco merely remarks that it seems like that Sonic and his friends are having a bit of a rough time of it. At which point Dr. Eggman decides to actually give Rouge a task and ask her to help with something, and that's for her reward, he'll give her a Chaos Emerald, which obviously causes the robots to panic, pointing out that she's a dirty double-crosser. But Rouge merely points out that Eggman is being oddly generous and asks him what his deal is, and Eggman merely doesn't elaborate any further. He just points out that obviously he just wants the chaos. He just wants her help, and also points out that as a bonus, he'll tell her what his evil plan is, and she finally agrees, but only for the Chaos Emerald, and but it's at this point where But to this point where where Sonic and his friends actually wind up battling against the Metarex, and the Metarex at which point Cream and Tails actually activate the laser on the blue cyclone and actually winds up shooting the steel wall that the Metarex is trying to shapeshift into, but which winds up dispersing its particles for the time being. But it merely transforms into a giant vampire mouth and tells them that the weapons are ineffective against it and they can't actually destroy it. At which point it starts raining down a storm of arrows on their head, and Tails actually decides they have a much better idea of how to actually destroy it, which is to use what they refer to as a ring tunnel, which as it implies is very similar to the Lake Dash from the Sonic games, where Sonic uses rings to charge into the Metarex and try to destroy it, and Chris winds up setting that up by launching out a bunch of rings, which Sonic then rail grinds on with the hover shoes that Chris also provides, and tries to destroy the Metarex, and winds up finding its core and tries to destroy it, but the Metarex just laughs at him and tries to electrocute him, pointing out that Sonic's attacks are no match for him, and it's fitting that he'll die here. And then after electrocuting Sonic, it proceeds to knock him out, and he winds up falling through the air, with Chris trying to catch him, and as Sonic kind of wakes up from being electrocuted, and tells Chris to leave because it's too dangerous, but Chris remarks that he doesn't care and actually winds up flying into the line of fire from the Metarex and winds up damaging the ship in the process. Meanwhile, as this is happening, the combined effort of the Metarex's Chaos Emerald, which is revealed to have been eaten, by the way. It ate the Chaos Emerald at some point. The Master, as well as the Master Emeralds and the Chaos Emerald keeping Shadow in stasis, actually all activate at the same time. At which point Shadow winds up waking up and winds up smashing his way out of his little stasis pod. At which point, Dr. Eggman and Rouge immediately realize something is wrong, and Dr. Eggman immediately goes to investigate with Rouge in tow. But by the time they get there, Shadow has already woken himself up, has taken a view of his surroundings to try and figure out where he is. Notes that he has a Chaos Emerald and notes that it's glowing, and just concludes that it's time for Chaos Control and disappears. So by the time they get there, he Chaos Controls out of the room and actually goes to help the good guys. Actually, he winds up we don't actually see the attack itself, but he winds up repelling one of the attacks meant for Chris, and winds up destroying it with its own attack, which causes it to be destroyed. It doesn't drop a planet egg because they've long since vanished with the planet egg, but it does wind up dropping the Chaos Emeralds, and also the castle winds up returning back to normal, and all we just see is Chris sitting on top of the castle with Shadow standing on the wind vein with both of the Chaos Emeralds circling him, and Chris is kind of a little bit in awe to be Shadow, since he thought Shadow had disappeared, and Shadow doesn't say anything. He just kind of looks at Chris for a minute, and then he just disappears with another Chaos Control and vanishes. And everybody is reeling over the fact as to whether or not Shadow was actually there, and wonders if they actually indeed saw him. And at which point Shadow actually teleports back to Dr. Eggman's ship with both Chaos Emeralds in hand, and then he collapses because he overexerted himself. Because obviously he's been in stasis for a very long time. But yeah, this episode is interesting for that reason. Namely, it points out that the Metarex have actually successfully conquered a planet, and it's likely that planet will never actually sustain life again. But more to the point, Shadow is reintroducing the story now. So that's going to be interesting. That's another character that we're going to have to keep track of, because now he's just in the story, and I have no idea how that's actually going to play out. Because obviously Shadow is a very interesting character. Obviously in the games, he's very interesting because he has a very deep backstory and a very deep story lore-wise. But and that's kind of pointed out here. But I'm not entirely sure what his goal might actually be here, because obviously he's been in stasis for a long time. He saved the world, and I'm not entirely sure if he's actually going to come back and actually help out and help the fight against the Metarex. I hope so, because obviously that would be anybody who can help fight against the Metarex is a good thing. But yeah, I am interested to see how this is actually going to play out. But for the time being, thank you. That's going to do it for my review of Sonic X. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. To just keep up to date with what's going on the channel, just be sure to go follow me over there. Be sure to go check out my page. Just be sure to go check that out. I also retweet art a lot, so just go check that out anyway. But and also be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support what I do. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. So if you have a couple of bucks to spare, just go throw them my way and help support me with some donations. Finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one, while the bottom video is based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.